Hey there, it's Tinker, and this here is the Sharp Aquos Crystal. Yes, it's a Sharp phone for the US market. In fact, it's available only on Sprint, and of course benefits from Sprint's LTE network, which is, as we know, still in the works, I guess. Not the best coverage. But what's really unique about this phone, the reason I'm reviewing it, it's mid-range, but it has almost zero bezel on three sides. And so because of that, I really wanted to get my hands on it. It looks like a small phone, right? But it's actually a 5-inch display. So that's what you need to know about this phone. First of all, 5-inch display, 720p. Let's not get too crazy. It's an IPS panel, but it's pretty oversaturated. This is the default brightness, as you can see, and the colors are a little wonky. I'll show you a little more up close as we go through the review here, but you can immediately see, as I bring up the icons, how saturated the colors are. They almost look like an OLED display, which is very odd because it is not an OLED display. The other thing that's interesting is that there is no speaker on this front. There is actually no earpiece. The entire surface, glass surface of the front, is a vibration bone conducting earpiece, basically piezo activated. Something that Kyocera did on some of their Sprint, low-end Sprint phones before. What's interesting is that this is an entire piece of glass. So there's actually glass covering into the edge of each corner of the phone. So if you drop this phone on a corner, you'll probably break the glass because it's right at the edge. I don't know if you can see it right here. Right at the edge on all four corners, all the way around, even the painted area down there. The other oddity is because it doesn't have a speaker and nothing in the top, the front-facing camera's at the bottom. So when you activate the front-facing camera, it recommends you flip the phone this way to use it to take selfies. And the sensors are all based at the bottom, which is a bit weird when you try to put it to your ear, but it does seem to work okay. So again, bone conduction type piezo speaker in the front, really interesting technology. No bezel is really fascinating. It looks like a sci-fi prop almost when you pull out this phone in public. People are like, what is that? And that's kind of what's cool about it. The displays, as I said, a little oversaturated, but it's a pretty beautiful display for just a 720p 5-inch panel. It's a pretty small phone for a 5-inch phone, and I'll show you that in a second. That's one of the benefits of not having a lot of bezel. Flipping it over, you get an 8-megapixel autofocus camera with LED flash, no OIS, of course it's mid-range. Here's the main speaker in the back for playback. There's a microphone back here. The cover is removable, but the battery isn't. There's a micro SD card slot in here with only 8 gigs of built-in storage and a micro SIM slot, of course, since it's using Sprint's LTE network. So let me walk you through. The top here is the headphone jack, as you can see. Power lock key, which is a little hard to find sometimes because it doesn't protrude very much. On the right-hand side here, you really don't have anything. It's completely bare. On the bottom here is the primary microphone and the mic USB charge and data port, and on the left hand side you get the volume rocker, as you'd expect right here. So that's basically the lay of the land, and as I pointed out to you before, front facing camera, Aquos logo, sensors in the front, there's a LED notification light, which is a nice touch, and really nothing else. Check out the no speaker, no bezel stuff here. I'm going to let you admire this for a little while, and I'll bring up some more icons so you can have a look at what it looks like. And you know, again, we're on the LTE network for Sprint. So it's a really interesting phone. It's mid-range. Inside you'll find a Snapdragon 400 quad-core, which is a great mid-range processor. You know, the front-facing camera is kind of meh. The main camera is not bad. It could be better. Sharp has done better in the past. It does have a decent camera interface at least, so you know, I wouldn't say it's pretty mid-range. It's, you know, nothing to write home about, but it's perfectly serviceable. 1.5 gigs of RAM, very much in the middle of the pack. There's no NFC on this device too, which is a bit of a disappointment. So no NFC payment or anything like that. Mostly for me, NFC is about pairing with other devices, frankly. It's got a really nice soft touch back that's dimpled here. It does catch fingerprints nicely, as you can see, even though I clean my phones before reviewing them. There's still a lot of fingerprinting. There's a secondary microphone here for video recording, presumably. For, you know, plastic mid-range phone with a front that's full glass, it's really quite well done. It doesn't feel cheap. Yeah, it's priced pretty competitively. I can't exactly remember off contract what it costs, but you know, for a Sprint device, it's pretty awesome. And I think overall, if this is the future of phones with no bezel, count me in. I know a lot of you are like, oh, but if you drop it, you know what? I don't drop my phones that often. If I'm really concerned about it, I'm going to put them in a case. This phone does not feel slippery, which is great. So you don't really have to worry about that too much. Let me compare it with some other phones so you get an idea in terms of size what we're talking about here. Again, 5-inch phone that's really compact. That's really something pretty exciting to me. So to show you how compact it is, I'm bringing out the Samsung Galaxy Alpha. And this is a 4.7-inch 720p display phone. And as you can see, other than being a little narrower, and even that's marginal at this point, it's just that the display is narrower because it has a bezel on each side. But tall, it's about the same. Of course, it's thinner significantly because it's one of the thinnest phones on the market. But the point is, this lack of bezel has made a 5-inch display fit into the footprint of a 4.7-inch phone traditionally, and that's kind of exciting to me. Flipping them over, that's what they look like. Again, very much similar footprint. This is quite a bit thicker though, probably, you know, the Alpha is about 2/3 of the thickness of the Sharp Aquos. So stacking them together, you can really see the difference in thickness here, quite significant. But anyway, I just wanted to show you just so you have a point of reference. And now let's bring out a phone that is also a 5-inch device, and that's the Nexus 5. Just because, well, even though they're not in the same league, this is actually a 5-inch phone. So 720p 5-inch phone versus on the left here versus a 1080p 5-inch phone on the right. So you can clearly see that you know, the Nexus is not that much bigger because it doesn't really have that much bezel, but it's a little bit taller because of the bezel on the top. So you know, that's what you get for, if I line up the displays, you can see it. That's what you get having a small device with a 5-inch screen, and the Nexus 5 kind of started that trend. This is what they look like from the back. Both have 8 megapixel cameras, but of course there is OIS on the 5. You know that it's a high-end phone versus mid-range. It's not really a comparison. And then if you stack them on top of each other, you'll see that, yeah, you know, it's acceptably thin, but not super thin. So there you go, the Sharp Aquos Crystal for Sprint here in the US. A lovely little mid-range phone on that network. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily pick it compared to other choices, but for Sprint devices, it's a really quite a nice option. Price is good, specs are decent. I wish it had NFC, and perhaps that the camera was a little better, but you know, you can't fault it. The display is a little bit too bright, and the color saturation and color temperature is a little odd, but you get over that pretty quickly and you get used to it. So there you have it, the Sharp Aquos Crystal. Follow me on Twitter, I'm Tankgirl, TNKGRL, and also my blog is tankgirl.com, again, TNKGRL.com. Like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be back with more reviews soon. Cheers!